All right, so greetings all. Doti has an excellent presentation for you today, and I just wanted to be very brief in going over a few housekeeping items, as I always do, but I know she has a lot to get to, so I'll keep this real short. So first off, I just want to remind you all to complete the survey that I sent out a few weeks ago, as this will allow me to disseminate a contact directory for the entire cohort on the Wigio board. So look out for that. Secondly, I will be emailing the schedule of upcoming webinars later today, which will include agendas for upcoming webinars, as well as info on our next presenter. And lastly, I'll be out of the office on vacation next week, and so my esteemed colleague, Mirel Pose, will be facilitating Monday's Q&A session based on today's presentation. So she's actually on the line listening in on the webinar today and taking notes, so you'll be in good hands come Monday. And with that, Doti, I would like to turn it over to you and begin today's presentation.
Michael.
Yes, you're on.
Make sure that you can hear me. Well, wonderful. Thank you. It's great to be here with you again. We have a fantastic set of information for today, and I love to have seen the level of engagement shown for session 1, so I know that everybody's going to enjoy this one as well. So just like we did during the last seminar, I wanted to just block everything out, all the distractions, and get grounded together so that we can just do that simple breathing exercise. So please, wherever you are, with both feet on the floor, and hopefully you are able to close your eyes if you can. If not, just you can do it with your eyes open. I want you to place one hand over your head just to stimulate your oxytocin. And let's take 5 breaths together. So let's do the first one. Remember to breathe as though you are actually breathing in and out of your heart. Inhaling into your heart and exhaling out of your heart. As you inhale, breathe in appreciation and compassion for yourself. And as you exhale, let's just let all the stress out of your system. And one last big breath into your heart. And as you exhale, you can slowly open your eyes. And you can take your hand away from your heart. We are now connected to one another as we continue to supercharge our collective intention of becoming more effective and inspiring leaders. Today's topic is fantastic, is raising your Latino voice in leadership. This has always been a great importance to me because I understood very early in my career how critical it was to find my voice and be able to succeed. And given that what we discussed in the Q&A session a couple of weeks ago, I know this subject is also near and dear to all of you. Today we're going to be discussing then some challenges that we as Latinos are facing in the work environment. Why having our own voice is so critical to your leadership growth, and a process I developed to help you find a way to find and use your voice. All right, so let's begin today by pointing out the elephant in the room. We wouldn't be having a seminar of this type if there wasn't a deep need to find our way into organizations where most of the people that we work with or for look very different than us. You know, it's funny, but I thirst, just for the sake of it, I thirst raising the angle voice and leadership, just changing the name of the seminar, and I was unable to find one. They don't need it. So it was just funny that this is what happens right now. Now, even with the increasing Latino population, which has been fantastic over the last 50 years, we are still a minority group in this country, and all of us know that. And that gives us plenty of challenges to deal with in the work environment. However, we are growing a young and a very powerful population, and we're estimated to be 65 million strong in the US. That is, of course, if we add the 9.7 million of undocumented immigrants to the total number the census reported of 55.3. Now, our growth has been incredible, as all of you know, and it will continue to be. In fact, we are expected to double our population by 2050. But the question is, this tremendous growth of our community has been changing the landscape. For example, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics wrote a report in 2013, and it says that Latinos have been and will continue to be and drive 80% of the workforce growth between 2012 and 2022. The implication of this is tremendous. Imagine what that can be. We Latinos will even be more represented everywhere in the US, in every industry, at every level within organizations. And there will be way more opportunities for us to move into higher positions of leadership. We really, I mean, even now, we don't have to wait to just be proud of powering the growth of this country. But the question is still standing is why is it that only 3% of the executive suite is represented by Latino individuals? Well, I have spoken about this matter with many Latino leaders and friends, but the best answer to that question was given at a panel by Lisa Garcia-Quiroz. Lisa Garcia-Quiroz is a senior VP and Chief Diversity Officer for Time Warner. She's the president also of the Time Warner Foundation, and she was the founding publisher of People en Español. So she said, when she was asked about this, you can reach the middle of an organization based on intellect and skill. But to reach beyond that level, it suddenly becomes how much people like you, who you know, and who is opening doors for you. I absolutely agree with her advice because I believe that all Latinos who are looking into reaching higher levels of leadership have to deal with external and internal barriers. Lisa's advice, if you analyze it, has two parts of it. One is how much people like you. It's all about how others see and perceive us. And we have really little control over, initially at least, over what people pre-existing biases are and what they think about us. However, we start changing that when we start to be very present and conscious about how we are showing up in the world. Now, the second part of her advice is that it is about who you know and who have you built relationships with that are willing to open doors for you. Now, we have more control over this latter part because there is a lot we can do, not only to choose, but to work on building the right relationships. Now, we have to be conscious that, and not believe for a second that white women or men have nothing to adjust when they enter the corporate world. However, we have way more to deal with besides our own insecurities and the learning process and of entering any new organization or reaching any new position. We have another set of barriers into advancement that come up from our familiarity of the mainstream culture.
Toti, can I just jump in real quick? I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but you are no longer sharing your screen. So if you could just reshare it and continue, I apologize. I'm going to mute myself
No
now.
worries. Thank you for letting me know. So Michael, it shows here that I am sharing it. Can you not see it?
It's good now.
It's good now? Okay.
Yeah, you're good to go. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Now, this is not going to be the platform where we are going to be discussing if the U.S. working environment is fair or not to all of us Latinos. We can spend days discussing that at length. What I want us to do instead is to focus on our discussion into what is possible. So with that in mind, I would like to ask, I would like each of you to ask yourselves, what do I need to learn or change to be ready to take on higher levels of leadership and responsibility and bring others with me to increase the number of Latinos in the executive suite? We want to change that 3% to a huge percent. So I will say that we need to recognize the key issues we as Latinos face in the corporate environment. We also need to figure out what being Latino in corporate America means to each of us and bring that into the business relationships that we build. We're going to be discussing this in more depth in a little bit. What is clear is that each of us is Latino, and we are each looking to have higher levels of leadership. So the way I see it, there are several obstacles we need to conquer to be able to find our own voice and put ourselves in a better position to achieve the top levels of leadership that we really want to get to. The first obstacle against us are the stereotypes. We can get rid of them. There are dozens of them out there, and unfortunately, the reality is that we can't change what people think in regards of the Latino population. However, we should be mindful of the fact that they exist, and more importantly, see how we can influence someone's thinking to change those that are misperceptions. Why should we do that? Well, because those stereotypes have us at a loss. Even before they know us, we are losing ground, and it is in our hands, if we choose to prove them differently. So let's show them instead that we have the same goals as everybody else, that we are just as competent, as committed, as effective, and as focused on the results of the organization. We want to get the job done and help move the goals of the organization forward. We work for and succeed as individuals, just like they do. Perhaps it's in this last point where the difference appears. We need to make sure that our Anglo counterparts are able to differentiate between stereotypes and the real cultural differences and characteristics that we do have. Talking about those real ones, these would be a set of perceived obstacles, and I'm going to call it perceived because we differ in degree, but through which ones are true for each of us, and for some of us, some will be even at a higher degree of reality than for other people. For example, it's true that we see the world differently when we come from a different background. And we see it just by being Latinos, we can have a different perspective on things. But we add to that, what if we came from a different neighborhood than the white counterpart person that we're talking with? Or what if we came from a different city or state or country? We have different or additional cultural values. For all of the people that grow up in the US, being Latinos, we share the same cultural values that anybody else will have. But on top of that, we have our own Latino values. So many of you will probably remember your mothers or grandmothers saying, you know, it's tu sangre, do this for your brother or your sister or for your dad, or how our mothers or grandmothers taught us about the respect for the elder, for the abuelos. It's, you know, we do have, even if we grow up in this country, we do have a certain set of values that are just unique to our culture, or Latino culture. Just as those two, we have a different degree of intimacy because we seem to be a little bit friendlier, or at least welcome people into our lives quicker than the average Anglo-American does. We have a sense of a space that is a little bit different. We don't mind being a lot closer. It's part of our Latino culture. We take relationships in a very personal manner. We do care a lot about people and about connecting truly with others. And it becomes a little bit of a sore subject when we see our Anglo counterparts taking things in the organization as impersonal. Yes, it's business, is what they say, but we take it a little bit more personal. And we also have a different sense of respect for authority, because just as I was saying, or Latinos, influencers, grandparents, uncles, the elders, that has to be humble and to have respect for the elders. And when we come to the organization, to corporate America, they see that humbleness and believe that we are not assertive, or that we don't feel as equals with the top executives of the company. And so on and so forth. These are some of the things that we will see that for some people, they become points of obstacles. Now, so far we have been talking about ways in which other people may perceive us, how they look at us, or what they think of us when they meet us. But I want us to also consider some obstacles that we can create within ourselves because of the way we think about ourselves. There's a professor by the name of Fernando Ferman, and he's a professor at Alliance International University. He also works to develop Latino leaders and help organizations hire more Latinos. And he wrote a very interesting paper. I'm going to send you the link of it, called Identity Orientations of Latinos in the United States. One of the points that I liked about it the most is when he explained that the key issue facing Latino managers and executives today is that Latino and Latina leaders have to deal with figuring out what being Latino means to them and making a connection between that and how they come across at work. In some ways, each of us, no matter our ethnic background, has to find a way to fit who we are and where we come from into our work. But for Latinos, this gets a little more complicated by the stereotypes and overgeneralizations that affect how other people see us. So it's very interesting, and he also gives some advice. I'm going to give you that link. I know that you will enjoy it. So as Fernand points, we have to figure out our own place in the world. We begin to develop our own voice, which we use every single day. But what is that voice? What is going to define us? What is going to move us into positions of leadership? Well, your voice is who you appear to be in all the sense of the word. Your voice is that impression of you that you have verbally and non-verbally, and you're sharing that with the world every single time you show up anywhere, even if you're not talking. But when you make use of your voice, you're telling them who you are, what you care about, what you believe in. So your voice is what you do and what you don't do. It's the causes that you get involved with. It's what you choose to do with your time. It's how you do things. It's how you behave. Everything that we do talks about is a reflection of our voice. And since your voice is what people know of you or how they perceive you, we in marketing have a name for that. That is called the personal brand. You know, many people don't really pay attention about personal brands, and I think that is such a mistake because we already have one. So we might as well just really understand what perception we have out there and see if that is what we want to have. So your personal brand is the image people have of you. Have you ever asked yourself, what do I want people to think of and feel when they interact with me? Or what do they think of and feel when they interacted with me in the past? Since it is all about the voice that you are delivering, which we understand is the brand that you are delivering, then how do you build and deliver that brand? Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, confirms this. Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. And I want all of us to remember that fact. The brand exists with or without your presence. And that's why we need to take so much care of that. So I've developed a process. I call it the inside-out process of personal branding. And you're going to at least with the first point, you're going to be very familiar. And I think it's simple enough that we will know what we need to do to create a strong personal brand and be able to really take care of the voice that we're putting out there. So the first one is know your voice. Is being true to who you are really the only way to be able to build a consistent voice. A voice that will be able to open those doors that we need for people to open more doors for us, right? So since you went through the leadership clarity process in the last webinar, in the homework, all of you, I believe, are already know that getting to know yourself or your real voice is an exciting but difficult process. It's only difficult because you have to look from the inside out. You need to study yourself completely, and you need to be honest to the assessment and that you're rediscovering, because what we need is to just find that authentic you. You may remember that we discussed in the homework, well, during the webinar and also in the homework, by now you must have the answer to who you are, what you want to accomplish, because you already have those vibrant goals in mind. You know your why, or the purpose or reason that drives you to reach those goals. You understand where is the place that provides you with the best environment for you to thrive, and you also know your how, or the way that you now intentionally want to live as you create and reach those goals. So I won't spend much time on this subject today, since all of you are already deep into that development and that rediscovering. However, there are more layers to this onion that we need to peel. Think of it as if the work you have done was to find all of what it is at your very, very core. And now we need to do a little bit more digging and more self-reflection to put together all the components of your voice. Because our voice also represents our beliefs, our values, and those come from a little bit of a different place. So let's take a look at that. So the first group where those come from is the innate. This is you at your core. These are the innate talents and abilities you were born with, and the personality attributes, strengths, weaknesses, and the interests that you came wired with. For those of you who have children or have been around children, you know that they come wired with that already. We came wired with that as well. For example, people are born with a great voice and a talent to sing. Other people are born with interest for history. Others with interest for traveling. Others have the gift of the word. You see, those people that when they were little, their parents or family noticed that they were good speakers and they could deliver a speech even when they were 5 years old. And like that, you know, a million of talents and abilities that we can see it from when we were kids, or parents were able to see it, and if we have kids, we're able to see it ourselves in them. The second group is what you were taught throughout your life by one or more of your influences. So when you were a kid, you were specifically taught certain skills, values, principles, and rules of your home, of the home you grew up in. Then you went to school, and then again, you were taught some skills, values, principles, and rules. And you kept adding that into your Bible of life. And then you went to work, and then you got friends, and everywhere you kept learning some more skills and values and principles and rules that started then forming your character. And you did that throughout your career. For example, I remember my mother passing down family values just by saying, como mi papá decía, el que se levanta temprano, Dios lo ayuda. God helps those who wake up early. And that was her way of getting up from bed early, even on weekends. Or she would say things like, in this house, we don't throw good food away. There's many people hungry in the world. Eat everything. And you know what's funny is that I find myself repeating those same things to my own kids. So those are values that are very intrinsic in me, even this many years later. So we learn those rules and principles and values from our family, from the groups, from schools, and along the way, we develop passions and interests that had a lot to do with those original things. So let's go with that to the third group, which is the acquired. And this is where you start getting the learnings. You know, you learned at home when you were before you went to kindergarten. You learned at home or in preschool, and then in school, and then again, you know, in the different places where you were throughout your life. And you kept acquiring beliefs, the beliefs of those people that you admired or were your influences during those times. And sometimes they got you to take on certain interests. And then you got some passions inside that actually were developed as you learned the different things. So you kept experiencing and forming your way of thinking through that. Now, what's different about the path circle is that you acquire them through observation and practice and from your own experience. They were not taught to you by anyone. These are things that you start picking up, things that behaviors, you know, we see our parents or we see our brothers or sisters that were older than us or cousins, and we keep, or even the friends. That's why our parents kept saying to hang out with the right group of friends, or we will be looking and behaving just like them. Okay, now let's go to the fourth group, which is the inner desires. And this is an interesting one because these may or may not be influenced by the other three areas. These are things that, for whatever reason, you want out of life. Your passions, your goals, your dreams. You're driven by some inner desires to buy certain things, to live certain experiences, to reach certain levels of leadership, and to live a particular lifestyle. For example, my most inner desire is to make a difference in someone else's life by bringing light and clarity to their path. And I dream of reaching thousands of people as I take my programs everywhere internationally that I can. You know, if I were to tell this to any of my 6 brothers, they will say, where do you get that from? They were raised by the same family, and none of them have this desire or this love for making a difference in somebody else's life. They're great people. Don't take me wrong, but it's different. Okay, let's go to step 2, which is mark your voice. You have by now, after understanding the step number 1 and having done all the homework of the last time, you understand, you have a really good sense of who you are, what you got from the environment, and what you're passionate about. You can now make a sound decision about what you stand for. So the formal definition of the verb to mark is to show the position of. So when you mark your voice, you're showing the world what you stand for. And allowing your voice to make its mark or distinguishing yourself can only be achieved by grounding yourself in this second step where you put all of the pieces of your life puzzle together. Then it's like if you were to see it in one place, like I'm going to show you, like this, and you start making sense of that. It's like putting a whole life puzzle together and decide what you stand for. And there is that middle, which is called the sweet spot, right in the middle of the diagram. And that is your voice, because after you put all of this together, you find context from your life story through which you will find your passion and inspiration about the impact you want to make in the world. So in other words, our life story provides the basis for our leadership style, for our voice, for what we want to be known for, and the impact that we want to cause in the world. So what emerges from this sweet spot is a different type of leader, one that has the clarity about the cause they want to move forward through their leadership. Does this remind you of authentic leadership? It does, doesn't it? All right. One of the things that we need to be very clear and really imitate is that we know that great success stories involve people who stand out from the crowd. And the only way that a person can stand out from the crowd is to know what they stand out for, what makes them different, and what they want to be known for. Let me give you an example. We all know Eva Longoria. Who doesn't? Well, people know her by her successful acting career, but there is a lot more that meets the eye. What a lot of us may not know is that her older sister was born with a developmental disability. And while many doctors were not optimistic about her being able to lead a full and meaningful life, her mother never gave up, and she became her champion. Eva observed and participated in her sister's care from a young age, obviously, throughout her life. And today, that inspired her. Now Eva's sister is highly functional. She has a high school diploma, and she influenced Eva Longoria in a way that is really meaningful. Eva decided to open her own foundation, and she believes that, she has said in interviews that she feels very fortunate to have grown up with an intellectually disabled sister. So in 2006, she co-founded Eva's Heroes, which is a non-profit organization dedicated to enriching the lives of individuals with intellectual special needs. Today, in only 11 years, she has helped, or the organization has helped, over 1,900 individuals. And she has programs, she goes to the legislature, she fights for the rights of these people. So we all know that Eva Longoria has a history of political activism in support of the Latino community. Well, someone once asked her whether she will ever run to be elected for an elected position, and her answer was very surprising. She said no. And she explained that it's tricky for politicians to hold true to their opinions and values, to talk about authenticity. And when I read that, I just thought, well, this is awesome. This is a person that is really being true to who she is and to the story of who she was as she was growing up. And now she's making, of that, she made a whole message, and now she's delivering that not only through her voice, but causing a great impact in the world through everything that she does through her nonprofit. And like this, we have many other Latino leaders. You know, this one, this lady, Soledad OBrien. I had the fortune of working with her for an event that I was leading, and I learned from her own sharing how much being in Haiti, the impact that caused in her. She's, as probably all of you know, she's a second-generation Latina with Cuban and Australian roots. And when she, after spending, I believe it was a whole summer or 3 months in Haiti, her heart moved her to co-found the Starfish Foundation. And that provides financial assistance and mentoring to young women in need. And like these two Latinas, also we see another example of another Latina whose life she's putting, and the heart she's putting on the line by helping other people on something that really comes from the core, from her passion, from the impact that she wants to cause in the world. So I want to ask each of you, what is your cause? Each of us has a unique voice, which means that each of us has a unique brand. And as we interact with others, we constantly leave an impression. And that collective group of impressions forms our reputation. I would say that we need to be memorable. And of course, I mean in a very positive way. So the third group, or the third step that I want you to go into, and don't worry, and we're going to send you some exercises or some homework to help you go through this. The third one is to build your personal brand, to elevate your Latino voice in leadership by owning your voice. That means to accept and value ultimately all of who you are and all of what has shaped you into the person that you are today. The good, the bad, or what you think is good and bad because you're the only one putting labels on it. It's getting to know that great moment when you feel good inside because you are able to truly love and appreciate all of the experiences you have lived in your life. Especially the difficult ones. You know why? Because those are the ones that have brought you the most important lessons. According to a recent survey, 3 out of 4 Latinos feel that in order to succeed, they need to repress at least part of their culture and heritage so that they can adapt to the same environment of the mainstream. I see a lot of issues with this. Let me just share 2 of the main issues that I see with this, and I'm a big opponent of changing so that you can adapt to somebody else's style of life. Now, what's wrong with this is that you are spending energy covering who you are, energy that I think could be much better spent on the business and on positioning yourself correctly. Imagine how much better you could perform if all of you could have more energy to think, evaluate, and deliver. Now, the second problem is that it takes away all the benefits of diversity. We all know diversity is the key to success. Diversity works when everyone is welcome and included and shares their ideas and opinions and are confident about what they have to share and the value that they bring to the table. If those diverse people were not present, everybody will lose. And I understand that we know that, and what we have a problem with is the other people or Anglo counterparts knowing that. But that's where we come from. When we come to share ideas and when we come with great solutions and great results, everybody listens. Everybody listens more to the behavior and the results than actually to our words. So that's what we have to show them. This is, again, the point that I want you to take is that I don't want you to lose the authenticity that we already learned is so important to become that amazing leader that you can become. Because when you do that, you act less confident and less effective. It's impossible that otherwise that this wouldn't happen. This will be the consequences. And just like perks, when we see a brand that is a product, it takes a toll little by little until it is unbearable when the product doesn't deliver what is the promise, right? The brand promise. And so we change it. Well, that's exactly what happens when we become somebody else and we don't deliver on who we really authentically are. People start sensing something on us until we start losing job after job. So it's not worth it. Now, the main obstacle leading to what I just mentioned is that almost half of Latinos in some studies, I'm going to send you another link to this study, but they say that executive presence, which is, how you act, how you dress, everything that has to do with presence in the working environment, they say that at their companies, executive presence is defined as conforming to traditional white male standards, and close to 40% say that they need to compromise their authenticity to adhere to those standards. And this trickles down throughout the organization. So if this was to happen in the organization where you're working, what would you do? Would you favor authenticity or would you favor conforming to the standards? You have to make a choice and act accordingly. If you decided to favor authenticity, but not because you want to change employers, there are many things that you can do to fit in without compromising who you are. But probably the most important is to act and behave in a way that is authentic to you and that is appropriate for the environment. So when I say I don't believe in people changing who they are to adapt to somebody else, I'm not saying that if there's a certain way of dressing that is required in your company that you say, oh no, I wear shorts to work, so I'm not going to adapt. Or either that's not it. What I'm saying is when you have to change your personality. Some of I remember somebody coming for coaching, and she was sharing with me that her name was very hard to pronounce, as is mine, and that she was asked if she could be called her middle name. But she didn't feel it. That's not how she was called throughout her life. So she didn't like it. And she said, well, what can I do? I mean, they even want to change my name. And they want to change, not only they are asking me to wear a certain style of clothing because they're lawyers, but now I have to change my name so that it's easier for everybody else. And I say to that, no, why don't you teach them the right way of saying your name? But in terms of the way of dressing, I guess you can actually adapt. Maybe it's not exactly like them, but you have to act professionally. We cannot expect that to not at least make the effort to meet something that it doesn't really change who we are. Now, remember that the clarification I made at the beginning of our talk, that your voice and your style of leadership lives in the mind of another individual who has a feeling and perception about you? Well, for the most part, when people first look at you, they just see your demographics. They see a person who is of Latino heritage, but they are also having a preconception they had about Latinos, but they are already making one perception about you. So everything that you represent not only about you, but about your community, that's the Latino community. Therefore, we must own our roots, we must own our history, and what shapes our community so that we can actually confidently walk into the business world. Okay, because when we own the fact that we are Latino, and we're proud of and not making excuses for being Latino, we already understand that our confidence level goes up. Then we're much more willing when that happens to share, contribute, and shine. This new freedom allows us to be more open, to share more authentic voice, and to show the world the wonders of being Latino. We have to recognize and be at peace with everything that comes with being Latino. It is part of our brand when people first meet us, and it is up to us to change all that is negative, all those stereotypes, through the right executive presence in our business or place of business. Our presence, as we saw earlier, includes not only the way we look or just being there, but also how we communicate and how we act. We can act in a manner that perpetuates the stereotype, or we can act in a manner that changes it. It is our choice. This doesn't mean that I'm suggesting that you do not speak up. On the contrary, we should speak at least the least to compromise, the very least, in order to not compromise our authenticity. And when we do it in an appropriate manner that is acceptable. It is not what others do unto us, but how we act in return. When we are in positions of leadership, we must assume that each and every move that we make is being watched and judged. Why? Because it is. Because we are Latinos, and the mainstream counterpart is not just to us. So if we compromise our authenticity, sooner or later, it's going to catch up with us. That's not what we want. Okay, by now you know your voice. You have marked your voice. You own your voice, I hope. And now you're ready for the fourth step, and it's to brand your voice. Using a marketing analogy, a brand is a relationship a person has with a product or a manufacturer. In this case, you are both the product and the company, and your brand will grow and become stronger as you provide more value and make a bigger difference for others. It is important to understand that just like a consumer product brand, a person brand grows through the interaction between you and the other person, and the type of experience he or she receives of you then decides how strong is your brand. This means that as the leader of your team, everybody around you, including those you lead and your colleagues and your supervisors, They're all constantly observing who you are, what you do, and how you do it. So, with so many people in the world who do what you do, why have you been chosen for the current post that you have? Or for that special project, or maybe are being considered for the next promotion? Have you ever wondered how other people perceive you when they chose you? Well, what you should be wondering is what type of brand you have been portraying out there and how strong it is. Think of those who know you well professionally, like your boss or coworker, or those team members that you lead. What would they say about the type of individual you are? Or if we ask them, what do you care about, will they know? Now think about your personal relationships, like with your mom or your dad or brother or sister or cousin or best friend. How will they describe you? Personal relationships come with emotions tied to them. When you think of your father or mother, for example, there are specific things that come to mind immediately. There are emotions surrounding them. Or when you think about anyone for that matter, there is always an emotion, a feeling about that person. So, just as we are constantly seduced by advertising to try a particular brand, there are many people who do what you do. And that's why you need to become unique. The people brands we encounter are also making an offer for us to engage with them. We are asking people to engage with us. After we try a product, we become loyal to it when the brand delivers on its promise, or we try a different brand next time. However, we are a little bit more cautious when it is about people, right? When we are going to have a service or pay for a service. When we're going to open our door to somebody and their brand. Because most of us in the past have been burned, unfortunately, by other brands, people brands, who have not delivered. And therefore, we are now more carefully about opening ourselves and our trust to other people brands. We want to trust the right people who deliver on their brand. It is important. So how could you make sure that your brand stands out? Well, the key is to concentrate on two personal brand distinctions. It's like the two brand differentiators of personal branding. The what you do, how many accountants in the world, how many people who know the community, how many people do marketing, how many people are lawyers, how many people are doctors. The what, everybody else can do. Now, the two things that are important is, first, who you are as you do what you do. These are the norms within which you operate, which are based on your own personal values. It is really your style. And the other one is how you do what you do. So it's the style, it's the way that you do it. It's the way that makes you unique because people like your way versus other way. It's like the person who does your hair or cuts your hair. You keep going to the same person if you like them, right? How many people cut hair? Thousands. But we keep going to the same person because of the way they make us feel when we do it, or the way they do it that we think is better than somebody else. So who you are and how you do it are the two main differentiators. On the one side, it's based on the way that you are built, the tone of your voice, your attitude, your body, your language. On the personality attributes, like when you do what you do, you're being energetic or dynamic or extrovert, creative, fun, adventurous. And on the other side are your learned behaviors that we were speaking about earlier, are the skills and abilities that you developed, such as your commitment to high quality or being a high performer, or whichever way that you do what you do best than everybody else. One way to think about this is to remember a good boss that you ever had in your life from a terrible boss that you also had in your life. The good one probably made you feel valued and were supportive. And the bad one probably was one of those controlling bosses who is demanding and is expecting a lot in an unreal amount of time. And you will always remember both, the good ones and the bad ones. Okay, now let's go to the fifth and final step, and that is to express your voice. Besides who you are being as you say it, and how you say what your message, we have to look at the product packaging. Remember, in this case, you are the product. So how do you package yourself physically? How are you looking the part? Where are you expressing it? Are you expressing it in person? Are you going out and are you a speaker? Are you a writer? Are you using social media? Are you writing articles or reports? And are you really targeting? Who is your audience? Who is listening? Each of you have a very important message, and even more important because you are Latinos. I want to make sure that you're also thinking, if you already know the cause and the impact you want to do in the world, are you targeting the right niche? Now, considering that you already know your purpose, is the people who are listening the right people to listen? So now it's time for you to launch your brand and let the world know what you stand for and what you can do for them. So it's expressing. Now that you have it, now let's express it. It's expression of our voice, and this is also an inside-out process because it's manifested physically and sensorially. Perhaps the best way to explain this is using an analogy of somebody driving a car, where our body and physical presence is the vehicle, and what we say and how we say it represents the driver and his way of driving. The route you take represents the channels you use to get your message across, and your destination represents your audience. The driver represents what we say. Just as the driver is critical to the operation of the vehicle, so is your message. You need to stand for the right reasons as you share knowledge and expertise, and all that is unique about you. The key here is to always provide value to your audience, and with that, give them a reason for them to spend time, energy, and resources on you. You will always deliver value if you keep asking yourself what's in it for them. People, it's not about what's in it for you, it's about what's in it for them. The way you drive is how you say it, or your style. No matter your personality type, you must learn to communicate openly and effectively in a way that your style or the how you say it is a true reflection of who you are. Okay, now the routes you take to other places is how it represents the channels you use to get your message out to the audience, expression. So you wouldn't not drive a nice car into a rough neighborhood. You will attract the wrong kind of attention, right? Instead, think hard where your desired audiences resides, and think hard about how to get there. Social media is one channel to get your audience as is the involvement in a cause or a key initiative of interest to your audience. So think hard about what makes your target audience tick and where they spend their time and resources, and draw a route on how to best get to them. In conclusion, elevating your voice is not about being famous. It's about being impactful. It's knowing who needs what you have to offer and becoming visible to them. It's about being a Latino leader, an inspiration, and a resource to your selected target audiences. Others' perceptions do define our brand. People form a perception of us sometimes by the actions we take and other times by what they judge as our intentions. But morphing ourselves to meet others' expectations of us is a very exhausting and energy-depleting way of living. The key to building a strong personal brand is being authentic, open, and with nothing to hide. All we can do is be consistent in what we do and how we do it as dictated by our inner self. People will think what they want to think, but the right people will be attracted to us. That is my biggest recommendation. To end, we have reached the end of the webinar, and I just want you to make sure that you remember that each of you has a brand out there, and what brand you are living and having today is your choice. If you're conscious, it's your choice. Thank you so much, and I will be sending you, well, Michael will be sending you the homework for this webinar, and I hope that again you start connecting more on Wiglio, ask questions, and be prepared for our next or Q&A. I will be looking forward to that. Well, thank you, Michael. This is the end, and I leave it up to you if you want to open it for questions.
Doti, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I think that'll spark ample dialogue for Monday's Q&A session. Since we do have like 2 minutes before the hour, is there anybody who would like to go ahead and ask a question now? And you can do so by clicking on the icon on your control panel that has the hand and the upwards green arrow, and that'll allow me to know that you are raising your hand, and I'll unmute you to ask a question. Or conversely, you can also type in a question under the question category on your control panel. So at this time, is there anybody who has a question for Doti? Okay, I'm monitoring. And if there's not, then we can go ahead and table this discussion and let it kind of sink in until Monday. And as I said, my esteemed colleague Mireille will be facilitating that discussion. And that will be Monday, the 17th at 1 o'clock Pacific time. So thank you all for joining us today. And please note that I will be sending out the PowerPoint presentation as well as any worksheets that Doti alluded to the group later today, as well as the recording itself. So look out for all that. Talk to you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.